If there's anything I understand about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's that it's probably the most controversial issue in modern politics. What is not controversial, however, is geography, due to which Israel needs to invest a lot of money in its defense. In fact, more money is spent protecting an average Israeli citizen than an American. That is due to the very specific and niche weapons, such as the Iron Dome. So what makes Israel's geographic situation so precarious? How much exactly does Israel spend on protecting its people? And what is the Iron Dome? And why does it cost so much? Let's roll. This is Israel, a country with a population of roughly 8.7 million people with a landmass of 22,145 square kilometers. That is a bit smaller than the state of New Jersey and a little larger than the country of Slovenia. Israel is not only surrounded by enemies, it has made enemies practically from within its own borders, and the territory Israeli citizens occupy is so small that they have nowhere to retreat to in case that they are attacked, as their land provides little to no cover, which means that citizens are always within the reach of rocket fire and various attacks. The city centre of Sderot, with its 30,000 inhabitants, is less than 5 kilometers away from highly populated areas inside the Gaza Strip, which means it's a prime target for even the crudest of rockets fired by the Palestinians. Ashkelon, a coastal city with a population of over 130,000 people, is also a prime target. Parts of the city are less than 10 kilometers away from active areas of the Gaza Strip. The Qassam rocket is the weapon of choice for these nearby targets, and the most recent iteration, the Qassam 3, has a range of over 10 kilometers, which means that multiple cities are at risk from this often home-produced contraption. Beersheba, a city of over 200,000 people, is just 40 kilometers from the Gaza Strip, and it is the first major medium-range target. Tel Aviv, the largest population center and economic hub of Israel, with over 4 million inhabitants, is just about 60 kilometers away, and can also be targeted. Jerusalem, the capital, with an estimated 900,000 residents, is less than 70 kilometers. All of these can be targeted from Gaza by the longer-range M75, J-80, Fajr, or-116 and M302 rockets, which have been manufactured with Iranian help. So Israel finds itself in very close quarters with its enemies, and with the distances involved in this conflict, the Palestinians are practically firing rockets from inside of Israel itself. There's no shelter, and nowhere in Israel is entirely safe from the attacks. For this reason, Israel has from inception been a nation of arms, required to develop a large military industry in order to protect itself, with a special focus on medium and short-range rocket interception capabilities through the Iron Dome and other advanced anti-ballistic weaponry. Gaza can quickly fire off a volley of rockets and then retreat back into civilian populations, dispersing and making active retaliation come with a significant civilian death toll. This further enhances the value of sophisticated and expensive active defenses like the Iron Dome. It is also due to its tiny geography that Israel has been forced into developing a military with capabilities comparable to the largest and most powerful nations in the world. A defensive war is simply something Israel cannot maintain for an extended period of time, as there are no buffer zones behind which it can protect its citizens. Instead, it has to rely on preemptive tactics. It strikes hard to prevent any drawn-out conflicts. In order to maintain and create a military that can adequately defend its borders, Israel spends 5.6% of its annual GDP on defense, which is about $21.7 billion. That makes up about 1.1% of global military spending, putting Israel in 14th place overall. So a population that makes up little more than 0.11% of the 7.6 billion people on Earth is spending more on defense than Brazil, a country whose population of 212 million makes up 16% of the global total and spends 19.7 billion on defense. Israel is being outspent just slightly by Canada, which puts on 22.8 billion into protecting its 37.5 million people. And while the US government, with its infamous defense budget of $778 billion, spent roughly about $2,350 per citizen, Israel spent almost $2,500. And that does not even touch on the investments and subsidies Israel has received from the United States, which has invested heavily into its weapons development. All in all, the protection of an Israeli citizen may be more expensive than that of any other citizen in the world, and opportunities for protecting its citizens come often. This is the Iron Dome. It's a mobile all-weather air defense system. It was developed by state-owned Rafael Advanced Defense Systems in 2007 and became operational in March of 2011. An Iron Dome battery includes a sophisticated phased array radar, a fire control center, and 3 launchers which together are capable of carrying 20 Tamir interceptors. The Tamir is 3 meters long and uses a proximity-triggered warhead to destroy rockets in mid-air. Each battery is estimated to cost between $50 and $100 million, while the Tamir interceptors are anywhere from $30 to $100,000 a piece. Statements coming from Israeli officials claim that the country would need 13 batteries in order to give adequate coverage to all the threatened areas. Currently, Israel has 10. The system is designed to intercept and destroy short-range rockets and artillery shells fired from distances of 4 kilometers to 70 kilometers, especially if their trajectory is aimed at population centers, exactly the sort of situation that Israel finds itself in every couple of years. One of the system's main party tricks is that it is capable of predicting whether or not a rocket's trajectory is on course to hit an important target or if it's going to miss. So it has the ability to detect, track, aim and explode ordnance in a very limited time window, which is particularly difficult with the short distances involved in Israeli combat space. According to Israeli missile experts, the ability to choose between the missiles fired means that there's only 1 interceptor fired for about 3 incoming missiles. It is unfeasible to retaliate to each of the rockets fired from within the Gaza, which are significantly cheaper, running anywhere from $100 to $500. A simple fact is that it is significantly harder and many times more expensive to intercept a missile on its way than it is to shoot one. But Israel is cornered, and this is an investment it must make. Detractors of the Iron Dome question its effect on lasting peace. The Iron Dome may render Israel less vulnerable to short-range rockets, but it also spurs Israel's enemies to catch up in the arms race or to simply get their hands on more rockets. After all, at $50,000 a pop, there are only so many interceptor rockets that Israel can afford, and a prolonged engagement is sure to cost Israel much more than Palestine as far as money is concerned. And it is exactly for this reason that Israel seeks to end its conflict swiftly, with brutal force and maximum pressure. It cannot sustain a prolonged drawn-out conflict as long as its opponents can. In any case, the Iron Dome has quite a significant effect on the morale of Israel's population and their behavior. Like any state, Israel must respond to its citizens' desires for protection, and the Iron Dome, costly or not, is simply an expectation at this point, securing peace of mind and adding to the total bill of Israel's overinflated defense budget. That, however, doesn't mean that the Iron Dome hasn't been exported from Israel. On 17 December 2016, Azerbaijan officials told reporters that they had reached an agreement with Israel to purchase the Iron Dome batteries, in the first confirmed foreign sale of the system. The country's acquisition of the system is believed to be related to neighboring Armenia's purchase of Russian short-range ballistic missiles. The use case is clear and somewhat similar to Israel as the two countries border each other, but it's still nowhere near as extreme as in Israel itself, as the vast majority of Azerbaijani population live in the eastern side of the country, some 400 kilometers east from the Armenian border. In May 2018, Romania's officials signed a deal to purchase the Iron Dome system. Recently, Romania had been on a military shopping spree after the country increased defense spending to 2% of its GDP in line with NATO targets. The use case for the Iron Dome presumably being to bolster naval presence in the Black Sea and to counter Russia. In January 2019, it was reported that the United States will purchase 2 Iron Dome batteries for $373 million. The deal was finalized in August 2019, and on the 13th of November 2020, Iron Dome was activated at Fort Bliss for testing and integration into the defense network, along with a second battery which was delivered on the 3rd of January 2021. South Korea also has shown interest in the Iron Dome in order to protect Seoul from the danger of North Korea's short-range artillery. The distance between the city center of Seoul and North Korea is less than 40 kilometers, and Seoul has for a very long time been perceived as one of the most under-threat cities from short-range rocket attacks, arguably presenting the second best use case to Israel itself. They have not gone ahead with the purchase, however, and will most likely develop a system that is similar in-house. Overall, the Iron Dome is an extremely niche weapon that very few nations can make enough use out of to justify the costs. Israel, however, has to take short and medium missile defense extremely seriously, but also nuclear strikes in case Iran ever builds its own capabilities, in which case it is also preparing. While the Iron Dome was designed to intercept short-range rockets, David's sling is created to intercept medium to long-range ballistic weapons. Its name has been derived from the biblical tale of David and Goliath. Activated in 2018, David's sling was also developed by Rafael Advanced Weapons Systems in collaboration with American defense contractor Raytheon. The interceptor, also called the Stunner, can stop rockets and missiles fired from 40 to 300 kilometers distance. The lethal Stunner has a radar and electro-optical sensor on its nose tip that precisely detects air threats. In the presence of a threat, it launches and targets rockets and missiles, destroying them in the atmosphere. It costs around $1 million per missile. Another is known as the Arrow, developed by Israeli Aerospace Industries in partnership with Boeing. It had a long journey of development, which started in 1986. It provides exo-atmospheric interception of ballistic missiles, meaning that it intercepts rockets while in space or outside of the Earth's atmosphere. This means that it is capable of stopping intercontinental ballistic missiles carrying nuclear, chemical, biological, or conventional warheads. The missile may have a reported flight range of up to 2,400 kilometers. Israel is currently developing Arrow 4, bolstering its technological and operational capability for the specific purpose of preparing for future threats in the Middle East, particularly Iran, which may or may not acquire nuclear weapons in its near future. With Arrow 4 in production, Arrow 3 may later be relegated as an anti-satellite weapon. Arrow 3 costs around $3 million per unit. When the Arrow 4 is complete, Israel will be amongst a few nations, such as the United States, Russia, China, and India, countries capable of waging space warfare. Another is the Iron Beam, a laser weapon capable of destroying threats within a 7-kilometer range. Its surveillance and tracking system utilizes twin high-energy fiber optic lasers to shoot down airborne rockets within 4 or 5 seconds of firing. The system is designed to destroy short-range rockets, artillery, and mortars that are too small for the Iron Dome system to intercept effectively. While setting up the Iron Beam is said to cost Israel the same amount as an Iron Dome battery, its life cycle costs are much lower at $2,000 per laser fired. Iron Beam has so far been funded mainly by the Israeli Ministry of Defense and also developed by Rafael. There is also the Barak 8, referred to as Lightning. It is a surface-to-air missile system developed in a collaboration between Israel and India. It is designed to take down airborne threats like aircraft, helicopters, ballistic missiles, combat jets, unmanned aircraft, and sea-skimming missiles. It can tackle multiple targets simultaneously at any time, no matter the weather condition. Aside from Israel, the Barak system is also being used by Indian and Azerbaijani military forces. A complete Barak system, consisting of a missile container, radar, computers, as well as installation, costs around $24 million. Considering this arsenal, Israel is very much playing in the big leagues. No expense is being spared, and Israel is ready for anything. Since its inception on May 14, 1948, Israel has been in 14 wars and many more military operations. Up until the 1980s, at least a quarter of its military budget was provided by the United States and other donors. But since then, its economy has grown, and it has managed to reduce the total percentage of GDP that it spends on armament. And USA, seeing that Israel has become economically self-reliant, has reduced its aid. Israel has also prioritized its own military weapons development, and while it used to mostly import weapons from abroad, lately it is exporting just as much as it is importing. And it is the 8th largest arms exporter in the world with 3% of the global market share. The defense industry in Israel is a strategically important sector and a large employer within the country, meaning that high military expenditure is not all bad for Israel. At the very least, it has created a very talented, patriotic, capable labor force. So despite the pressure under which Israel manages to maintain a coherent state and the high cost of doing so, as well as the low amount of natural resources available within its borders, overall it is pretty amazing that such a modern and well-adjusted economy has emerged in this region in such a short period of time, under a religious government no less. Certainly it has been at the cost of others, and certainly it would not have happened if the USA did not need a strategic ally that it could rely upon in the Middle East. But it's far more interesting to wonder if this modern country would have emerged if it was not a country at arms. The costs of Israel's defense may have been worth it after all. Next, why not watch my recent video on Tajikistan to find out why it's almost entirely dependent on Russia. And this is my Patreon map. Everyone on this map is a legend. Thank you all so much.